So I'm talking about decentralization as well. So the main issue I'd like to address is twofold. One is central AI, which is AI based upon centralized management of personal data. The other is attention economy, which is economic value based upon human attention, because human attention is the most rare resource. And these, in combination, cause many problems like surveillance capitalism, digital Leninism, and fakes and biases, which damage freedom of thought, conscience, speech, and choice of actions, and value creation by personal data. Because in these system, or in this situation, personal data is enclosed in different silos of big techs and government institutions, so on and so forth. So I don't think we should talk about details of these issues. Surveillance capitalism, coined by Zuboff, which is CAI's monitor and intervene in our lives, as you see in the privacy-threatening advertisements by the supermarket Target in the US, and also manipulation of voting behavior by Cambridge Analytica in the Brexit referendum and US presidential election, both in 2016. And digital Leninism is coined by Heilman, which is autocracy using centralized CAI with like Chinese national credit system. Oh, sorry. So the government-run social credit system is one example, and the other is the use of AIs to oppress ethnic minorities and the protesters in Hong Kong and so on. All right, and this is a recent famous example of fake and biases, where the Ukrainian president is calling on his people to surrender. Okay, how to solve these problems? It's very hard. In particular, how to displace CAI is a very hard problem, because it's unlike full-scale nuclear war or global warming, because in nuclear war and global warming, there is no winner. Everybody would extinct, right? But in the case of central AIs create winners, right? So we, the humanities, cannot cooperate to restrict central AIs. So it's very, very hard issue to how to contain central AI to diminish unfair interventions in our lives. So that's one thing. And I forgot to say this. And the only way, feasible way to contain CAI is to let services, both public services and private services, shift from CAI to some other technology in order to, increase their profit, right? And the second issue is fakes and biases, which could be somewhat mitigated by improving critical thinking skills of each of us. Of course, not just this dissolve this issue, but this should have a large impact on resolving fakes and biases issue. Okay, this is the whole picture, and I'm going to add more details in this picture as I proceed. So I would first like to talk about decentralized management of personal data, which the technology should be secure and respecting privacy and scalable, which supports personal AI and critical thinking skills, and both of which and this essentially supports what I call open citizen science, which is to promote personal AI in order to displace CAI to diminish unfair intervention. Also, critical thinking skills would maintain authenticity and diversity of information. And these two would together guarantee freedom, democracy, and value co-creation. And this is open citizen science, where democracy and social functions enhance each other based upon decentralized management of personal data, where personal data is aggregated to each of us so that we, you, I, can fully utilize our personal data, each person's personal data, by letting personal AI, well, in place of us, personal AI would fully utilize our personal data to maximize the value of personal data. And full utilization includes disclosure of personal data for the sake of secondary uses by these people, like citizens, governments, research institutes, companies, NPOs, etc., would be able to each collect and analyze many people's personal data directly from us, right? Rather, the current situation is personal data is stored in silos of GAFA and government institutions. So it's impossible for us to, for these people to directly collect personal data from the people, right? But if this is the case, then that's possible. And also, this is another very important point, these institutions or parties can check each other's analysis result to increase each other's trust. So there is no single trust anchor. There is no single authority, but the authority is decentralized. These can be authorities, but they can check each other, right? So that's the source of social trust, which is essentially democracy, whose definition may be decentralized power. Okay, and this infrastructure could be used for the sake of development and governance of PAIs, research on humans and societies, development of personal goods and services, and policy planning verification. Okay, let me talk about each of these means. One is decentralized management of personal data to maximize added value. This is a summary. Decentralized management means two things. One is one is to aggregate personal data to data subject to each of us, which raises utility because aggregation raises the value of, raises the quality of data, and which permits each of us to fully utilize the data for ourselves, and also which allows us to disclose the data for the sake of secondary use, like analytics and many people's data, and for the sake of machine learning and so on. And the other thing is, since there's no centralized management by other parties, the security is much higher than the current situation, where due to the many incidents of data misuse is due to the centralized management, because since some people, some controller can have access to millions of people's data or billions of people's data, that huge amount of data could be misused in one shot. But if the data is decentralized to each of us, that never happens. So in these two senses, decentralized management of personal data maximizes the value of the data. Okay, this would be makes it easy to understand what happens by aggregation of personal data to the data subject. And this aggregation is very safe and ethical because there is no human rights issues, because the data is aggregated to the data subject. And PLR is the kind of PDS, Personal Data Store, that I have been developing for, well, many years, over 10 years. And this is a software library to be embedded in personal applications and the corporate applications, and allows each of us, each user, to share its own data with other users. And it uses end-to-end encryption. You know, the PLR encrypts the data and then upload the data to what I call PLR Cloud, which is a collection of public storages like a Google Drive and OneDrive. And some other people could download the data and encrypt the data to use the data. All right, and the region of PLR Cloud of each user is controlled by the user himself or herself. So this entire service system is scalable to billions of users for almost free of charge, because this is managed by each user rather than the service providers. Okay, let me go to the second. Okay, this is some use cases. One is about education. And this is already in actual use in Japan or Saitama Prefecture. I have been collaborating with the education department of Saitama Prefecture. And what happens here is each student uses PLR applications to digitize his or her extracurricular activity, like volunteer activities or sports events and so on and so forth, and manages the data by himself or herself, and shares the data with the school affairs support system run by the prefecture, and his or her teacher can reuse this data for the sake of composing school recommendations for the students. Okay, another education example would be in experiment in this autumn, where we are going to connect PLR with MECBIT, which is a computer-based testing system run by Japanese Ministry of Education. So in this setting, the teacher uses PLR to manipulate MECBIT to register some examination problem in the system and let her students to solve these problems and share the answer data with the teacher. And of course, the answer data is essentially managed by the learners themselves, and the teacher can refer to the data by the consent of the learners. Okay, this will be experimented in hopefully next month about digitalizing administrative services in Arao City in Kumamoto Prefecture, Japan, where we are going to experiment on digitization of documents like questionnaires, etc., for the sake of infant medical checkup, because this service involves a lot of documentation written by the citizens, which is the most complex kind of administrative service. So we are going to digitize this, and the final goal is to total digitalization of the administrative services to enable electronic mother-child notebook. And this could be nationally rolled out, because in all the local governments use essentially the same data format. Okay, so I'm going to talk about why decentralization is more profitable than centralization. A personal AI will be able to totally optimize your life. It is dedicated exclusively to you, each of us. And it exclusively utilizes all your personal data, which is essentially decentralized management of personal data. And PAI intervenes in your actions more deeply and more carefully than other technologies, including CAI, which means it's more profitable to the business people. However, for the same reason, it may very badly damage your life, right? Potentially very dangerous. If the PAI, is working for the sake of its provider rather than the user. So PAI must be under very strict governance somehow in order to promote values by preventing damages and excessive paternalism as well. And the main technology in personal AI is decentralized matching, where also selection of relevant information without disclosing your personal data. So traditionally, so far, the sender of advertisements and so on collected personal data of the receivers and carried out matching here and exercised so-called targeting, advertisement targeting to the receiver. But instead of that, the sender is just registering information about goods and services in the catalog, which is an open data, which is downloaded by your personal AI, and the PAI would select relevant information thereof based upon the personal data stored in your PLR. So you don't have to disclose your personal data to anybody else, and he doesn't have to collect anyone's personal data, which is much safer. And also the matching is more accurate because PAI can use any kind of delicate or maybe shameful personal data for the sake of matching. By the way, this is similar to Google's privacy sandbox, but privacy sandbox does not allow you to fully use the personal data. But this setting, you can use the personal data fully. Okay, let me talk about some profitable example of decentralized matching. Suppose you went to a tailor and get your body measured and obtain the data, measurement data. Also, the catalog maker is collecting information about ready-to-wear clothes from the apparel maker and compiles a catalog, which is downloaded by your PAI, which exercises matching here, decentralized matching, using personal data in here. And if you are satisfied with the result, you are going to buy the ready-to-wear clothes from the apparel maker, and you pay through catalog maker, and the catalog maker takes some commission. So he's going to gain some income from this business, but this commission income is contributed by also the tailor. So the catalog maker gives some portion of this commission to the tailor. So the tailor or private companies in general, services in general, would be motivated or incentivized to provide their customers' personal data to the customers themselves in order to make profits. Okay, this is another example, which is very imaginary. We haven't implemented this yet. In Japan, at least, there's a service called Amazon Anshin, which means security mail. I think this is a Japanese domestic service, which is something. If you bought diaper from Amazon, also honey from Amazon, then Amazon sends you an email saying that don't give honey to your baby because it might cause infant botulism, which is deadly, bad for the babies under 1 year old. But in the case of this decentralized matching, you don't have to buy diapers and honey from both from Amazon. You may buy diaper from Amazon and honey from Alibaba. In that case also, your PAI knows both these purchases and it can warn that you don't have to, you shouldn't give honey to the baby. This is another example. Do I have time? Okay. Well, this is to, promote your behavior change for the sake of improving your lifestyle, health, literacy, etc. So in this example, your personal AI is, urging you to go through a health check, even if you are reluctant to do that. Okay, this is general theory about why PAI is more profitable than CAI. So currently there are many service providers from P1 to PN providing services to you using these functionalities F1 through Fn, which are operated as CAI, Central AI. But suppose one day those service providers decided to use your PAI as the digital customer contact point. Then your PAI would incorporate the functionalities from F1 and Fn. Also, it can access the kind of personal data D1 through Dn, which have been accessed by P1 through Pn. Which means, compared with the previous situation where P1 through Pn have provided each services. So there have been n one-to-n services so far, but given this decentralized setting, your PAI would have n plus 1 functionalities and have access to n plus 1 types of personal data. So it can potentially provide n plus 1 square different types of services to you. So for instance, like a healthcare service using measurement data, body measurement data, healthcare service using work data, and study guidance service using daily habit data, and so on. And if you consider this service, which is based upon personal data Dn, which has been provided by Pn, and the functionality F1, which belong to P1, if this service makes some profit, the profit could be shared between Pn and P1. So these service providers would have larger profits than before, much larger profits than before. Okay, let me skip this. So let me add some detail here. All right, since PAI is more profitable, the service providers would shift from CAI to PAI, which would displace CAI for diminishing unfair intervention by big techs, governments, and so on. And note that here is a cycle going around, which means that the spread of PAI means the spread of decentralized management to personal data, which enables open citizen science, as I talked about before, which is useful for the development and the governance of PAI, which raises the social acceptability of PAI, which urges service providers to shift from CAI to PAI. Okay, second topic is critical thinking skill for authenticity and diversity of information. This is graph document. You may call it argument map or concept map or whatever. This kind of thing have been studied more than, well, nearly 50 years. And we have been developing semantic data to allow you to collaboratively compose graph documents. The infrastructure is PLR. So this allows the service providers to support billions of people almost for free. And using this kind of graph structure, it would be quite easier for you to verify the information content, verify the authenticity of information content, because you can track the reasons and the bases and the data supporting each claim. And also you can pay attention to counter-arguments to each arguments and so on and so forth. So both authenticity and diversity could be, well, maintained to a large extent, at least. Okay, and what's important here is that we can spread the use of graph document. There's a huge bunch of research about this kind of thing. Graph documents improve critical thinking skills, even without explicitly teaching critical thinking. So there are classes in philosophy department which teach critical thinking in the context of philosophy education, but you don't have to do that. You can use any subject, like a science, mathematics, and so on. It doesn't have to be a critical thinking course. It may be anything. In any context, by using graphs, that improves your CD skills. That's the established fact. Another fact is graphs promote idea generation better than texts. And our recent research has shown that graphs are easier to compose than text. This may be a bit counterintuitive to some of you, but it is a fact. So this means that graphs can substitute textual documents in the daily setting, daily life and daily work, and improve intellectual productivity in the whole society. Which means critical thinking skills naturally improve, not through special training, but in daily living and work if you are using graph documents. Graphs have been auxiliary tools for education and idea generation so far, but it can be used. It can be a substitute for ordinary traditional text documents. And I don't have much time. Let's skip this and graphs better promote idea generation, which has been proven by some Japanese research group. And this is done by my student. He did 2 experiments. One is, both showed that graphs are more productive, easier than text to compose. And this is a synchronous setting. So the composition is collaboratively done by 2 people group, like this one. So in this setting, the 2 members of the group talk to each other and work on the same shared document. And the result has been compared between text and graphs. And all these now, most of these cases, graphs are better than text, except this one, which is conversion of the discussion, which is maybe reverse, but the p-value is quite high, so it is not statistically significant. And the second one is asynchronous co-authoring, where the first member composed half the document, and the second member finished the document, the rest of the document. And we have measured these indices between text and graph, and all these cases indicate that the graphs are, well, almost doubly better than text. Okay, so this is a full detail of the overview. Decentralized management of personal data supports PAI and critical thinking. And critical thinking is based upon graph documents, which will replace text documents, and the accumulation and sharing of graph document would enrich open citizen science, which would promote development, governance, and PAI. And these two, PAI and CAI, would maintain or protect freedom, democracy, and value co-creation. And this is, I hope I can reuse this slide to summarize my talk. So, thank you very much.